So patch 9.16 is out, couple of new changes, couple of buffs and some nerfs to champions such as Azir and Corki. Two champions that has been very strong in the previous patches. So let's just dive into it. Panfin, I'm sure you've all seen. We will take a quick look at that as well soon. But first let's just go over the patch in general. So we started with Azir, who's been dominating in mid lane. And we see his Q for late game has gotten added 2 seconds. Half a second here. 1 second. 1.5 and then ending at 2. Now what this does is probably going to get 1 less Q in a late game team fight. For lane he's going to keep on being very dominant in a lot of matchups. Especially now versus Corki. In my opinion, the Corki nerfs is actually bigger than the Azir one. Because sure, you do end up maxing your Q. But even though you max it, this does not matter as much as this, and you'll see why soon. But I think Azir will still be great. But this also limits his mobility, so that's another thing to keep in mind. Because of how his WEQ combo works. So this doesn't only reduce his damage, this also reduces his mobility, which is nice. And since, like I said, he ends up maxing this spell, it's a lot bigger of a nerf than what you may think. But it's not the end of the world. The champ will still be pickable, but I don't feel like Azir and Corki even needed nerfs. I feel like other champs just needed buffs, because there are picks into both of the champions. Like Corki, you could pick, for example, Ekko into, and that champion has been getting buffed a lot recently. Azir, you could be picking Veigar into. So I feel like the way to balance is you buff other things. But sure, nerf Azir Corki. Azir gets nerfed. Let's go over Corki. Now the reason why I think this is pretty big is because Corki is a Triforce user, which means he uses Sheen. So when his base AD gets lower, his Sheen damage also gets lower. So in my opinion this is pretty big, because later on he will have less AD as well. It's later flat as well. Is it the end of the world? Probably not. But Corki has been nerfed a lot in the past as well, so he's for sure weaker. Mundo is a champion that I feel like has been kind of under the radar, in my opinion. You could pick him both jungle and top lane into very heavy AP teams. So him seeing buffs after buffs after buffs, I wouldn't be surprised if this champion starts to see a bit of play now. The W, I'm pretty sure Mundo maxes Q. I don't play Mundo and I haven't really studied Mundo because this champion hasn't been in the meta, so I'm not too sure, but I wouldn't see why you would max W. So this, having this much tenacity at rank 1 is really big. This also gets lower cooldown later on, which is also really good. His E, like Mundo, does a lot of damage, surprisingly. It's really tanky and deals a lot of damage. So it's a good Mundo buffs. If they have triple AP comps, etc., look to pick Mundo. I think it's a pretty strong champion. Ekko is a champion for one tricks mainly, but I would go as far and say that everyone that is a mid lane main should learn Ekko at this point. Like I said before, it's really good into Corki. Syndra gets buffed in this patch. Ekko is also a really good pick into Syndra. So it's a good counter pick to have. Ezreal, thank you for nerfing this champion. He has been meta since forever. They're reducing his AP build, his power, which is good. Because what you could do with Ezreal, for example, is you could just go like double Bruiser AD, and then like Sejuani, and then have something like Ezreal Yuumi bot lane, and you have full AD team, but with a lot of AP damage in the bot lane. This might fix this. What's his E? A lot more punishing early. This is really good because right now, if Ezreal has a winning matchup, he can easily WE into a fight, and he can permanently do that without being scared. But with this, he might have to respect it a bit more. And you don't max this until at least second, so. Moving on to Fiora. her E. The thing about this one is that Fiora is good into couple champs that are meta right now, like for example Kled. Sion ends up getting buffed this patch, and Fiora is pretty good into Sion as well. So with all of this adding up, we may see Fiora seeing some play again. As a counter pick, this is not a champion you want to blind pick. This is definitely a big buff, especially this part. But it will be more relevant later on in the game. But yeah, it's good Fiora buff. And we will probably see her picked into things like Kled and Sion. Jax, another champion that's really good into Kled. I don't see why they would buff Jax. I feel like Jax is quite strong already. He's already seen some competitive play as well before this buff. This helps him even more in his harder matchups. This is pretty big. Same as like some of the other champions. Like a lot of the things in this patch is really good for the meta right now. Kassadin, right? Ekko got a lot of buffs this patch. If somebody blind picks Ekko and Kassadin is open, you can pick Kassadin into it. Kassadin is really good into Ekko. And this buff is really good for this kind of matchups for Kassadin. This is good. His W doesn't have a lot of cooldown either, has like 7 seconds. So you're really going to feel this buff. And it's going to help him a lot in matchups that he already dominates in, like Katarina and Fizz, Ekko, these kind of things. For us Veigar mains, we shouldn't really worry too much about this. This doesn't affect us much. This doesn't really matter. Like LeBlanc, if she gets picked right now, like she is getting back into the meta, but not because of this. It's because champions like Galio, Lissandra, Ryze, these kind of champions, we don't see them. And they were really good into LeBlanc in the past. The thing is that Syndra and LeBlanc is a skill matchup, mostly favoring the Syndra. But of course, depends on the skill of the players. Syndra got buffed this patch, so you may see some Syndra LeBlanc matchups again. That'll be spicy. It's a pretty intense matchup. But this doesn't, for the rest of us, this doesn't matter too much. But yeah, LeBlanc is gonna start making her way into the meta again, I feel like. But not just because the buffs just further pushes it. W shield, yeah, Riot couldn't go with Lux support being kind of bad for a couple patches, so they instantly need to buff it. That's a classic. What do they do here? If you end up maxing your W, you start putting points into it, it goes up. So rank 1 is the exact same. Even better later on, okay. That doesn't affect mid lane Lux at all. You max E and Q for mid lane Lux. I would like them to just continue buffing mid lane Lux, because I feel like it's starting to come back a bit. I played a couple games, and the R really hurts now. So I would like them to push for mid lane Lux even more. I don't like this bot lane Lux. Nocturne, what do they do with Nocturne? More armor, they're just rounding up his stats, I guess. Yeah. Like all of this, it doesn't matter too much, just looks a lot cleaner, and of course a buff is a buff. Right, this is gonna make a bit healthier clear, etc. Now what does this do? Rank 1 as well, bonus attack speed, nice, even faster clear, which means faster level 6 as well. Helps Nocturne mid and top as well. I know the EUS Nocturne top lane one trick will love this. But we're not gonna see Nocturne just because of this. Maybe we'll see Nocturne if Galio gets picked as like a counter to Akali LeBlanc, and then we see Nocturne Galio comes again with like Camille top lane or something. Maybe then we'll see Nocturne, but I don't see a world where Nocturne gets picked except for that. Moving on, Riven Q gets nerfed. Yes, good, thank you. This champion is really busted right now, and everyone that plays her is one tricks as well. It's a pretty disgusting champion. This is good. This doesn't break her, but it balances her a bit more. That's good. Sejuani has been really strong recently. What do they do to her? Her passive goes from being 20 bonus armor and MR to now being 10. Okay. So it's a nerf early and buff later, or I think it's just a nerf overall. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, she's still gonna be really tanky, just not as much. At least not early on. Later it's gonna be around the same, I guess. More cooldown. Even later as well. Yeah, 1 second as well later. Like, cooldown reduction for tanks isn't as much available because one, they get less resources. But, yeah. She's gonna end up building shit like Nice Vow and Warmogs, which gets CDR, but she gets them a bit slower than what other champions does because she has to go Cinder Hulk, while other champions might go Warrior. So, going this kind of nerfs on like champions like Sejuani is bigger than on other champions. So yeah, she's more vulnerable. Champions like Kindred will love this. Olaf gets to abuse Sejuani a bit more because of this. It's good. Shen is pretty dead right now. Again, this is really good versus tanks, but there isn't much tanks in top lane right now. But with the Sion buffs that's about to come here, you'll see them soon here. With those buffs coming in, we may see Shen be picked. I don't know. Don't exactly know how that matchup is, but yeah. This is like a buff. I like to call this like one-trick buffs. Like one-trick Shens will love this because they will pick the champion regardless. So Shen is not good, but can be played into certain things. But not because of this buff. The buff just buffs it a little bit. Sinch is completely useless, by far one of the worst champions right now in the game, in my opinion. Top lane right now is Kleptomancy and ranged top lanes 99% of the time. Sinch really struggles into things like this. Like, what does Sinch do versus a Karma, for example, right? She just outruns him, perma hits him, snares him, roots him into the ground, and gets 1000 Klepto gold. And it just feels awful to play Singed. This does not do anything, like what does this do, right? Rounding up Sinch stats, giving him 1 more AD, what does that do? Nothing. This is all useless. Sinch is shit. They even nerf his mana regen here. This champ is dead. This does not do anything, he's still as shit in lane. And then they just make him better later. Sinch is still useless. Do not pick this champ. Now Sion. Sion is pretty good into Jace. We don't see much Jace anymore though. But definitely you could look to go Sion into Jace if you want Sion. But I don't see why you would want Sion. Tank tops isn't really a thing right now. The boss will probably love this. This one I really like. This is especially good for... what's it called? Jungle. Jungle Sion and just lane Sion as well. Like if you want to go take Krugs, etc. This is really good. So again, it's like kind of like a one trick. Maybe we see the boss play some Sion jungle. We will see, I don't know. But yeah, this is also a buff. This is pretty nice because in some matchups you need to cancel your Q quickly. This will buff that a lot. This is really nice for the boss because he gets his Q maxed. Maximum damage here. So yeah, it's good Sion buff, but it's not going to do anything. Sivir. Sivir is strong. When coupled with Yumi, she's especially strong. Okay, her late game is the same. That's good. And less strong early. Perfect. I love that. Because I think champions that are that good late game shouldn't be that strong early. So that's good. I feel like her Q does a lot of fucking damage though. They might want to look into that. But Sivir isn't dead, but she's gotten quite some nerfs recently. Sylas jungle is dead. This is exactly what they should have done to Karthus jungle as well, instead of destroying Karthus mid lane. Karthus mid lane right now is really bad, but this does not do anything for mid lane Sylas, I believe. Except for unless you want to take like... hold on, wait. Yeah. Yeah, this doesn't change mid lane, because this is what it's already been. This is just if you want to take jungle camps as mid lane, of course. So jungle Sylas, thing with jungle Sylas is he already had a pretty bad early clear. Now it's even worse. So I don't think it's playable, to be honest. Just looking at this, but might be wrong. Definitely a nerf though. And this is what they should have done to Karthus jungle, instead of doing whatever the fuck they did. This one is pretty big, the Syndra one. And I'll kind of explain why. And right now we will see champs like LeBlanc, champs like Cassiopeia, get back into the meta. Syndra does pretty good into these champions, especially Cassiopeia. So, with these buffs that are pretty big as well, at least this one, I would not be surprised if we see Syndra a lot. But there are champions in the meta as well that can contest Syndra. Like said, Ekko, right? Tahm Kench. Less movement speed, that's really big when you're nerfing movement speed of supports, because they love to move around the map, same with junglers. Shield duration, good. Yeah. Tahm Kench nerf, not sure if he really needed a nerf, I guess in competitive. I don't see him much in solo queue. In competitive he gets played quite a bit, but there are definitely picks into him like Pike. So I don't feel like Tahm Kench was really an issue, but I guess Riot disagrees. Yuumi. Same damage in level 1. You end up maxing this, so nerfing her Q is really big. Big nerf. 50 less rank 5. The slow percentage is less. More slow early. Less late. The cooldown late stays the same, which is the big part. Because when I look at this, I'm thinking Garen Yuumi, right? I'm thinking, can I still play Garen Yuumi? And I believe I still can, because the ratios are still the same. She still has amazing heals, everything else is still good. She's still safe inside of Garen. She will still deal a lot of damage, because she will have a lot of AP. Sure, she'll deal less damage, but she has the same cooldown. You see here? She has the same cooldown here. This having more early doesn't really matter, because she can spam it as much as she wants late game anyways. So Yuumi is for sure weaker. Champs like Yuumi Sivir together will have a bit less priority, I believe, because of both the champions getting nerfed. But she's still gonna be really obnoxious. Her kit is still the same, just worse numbers. This, I love that Ziggs is getting buffed. I've complained about this champion since like Season 8. Do I think that these buffs is enough to make him strong? No, I do not, but I pick Ziggs regardless. So for me this is really good, because the champ is just a lot stronger with this. And I will explain why this is pretty good. Because the W, right, if you're playing into matchups like Zed, etc., you use it for escape and you damage them at the same time. So it dealing more damage is really good. The W is basically undodgeable as long as you're in range, because it's so big area. So you get to CC them, and also this is pretty big damage, to be honest. It's pretty nice. This is pretty big. What this means is that now you probably don't need to max it anymore. Sometimes I would max W second versus things like Zed and stuff, because it would have so much cooldown early, right? This 24. But now with it being 20, maybe you don't need to anymore. So you can start maxing E for even more damage. So that's pretty good. Split pushing is very, very common now, even in like low diamondish, people start using side lanes a bit. So making his ult have less cooldown later is pretty good. Makes it easier for you to stall and deal with split push. So yeah, it's good 6 buffs. He won't become meta. Maybe we'll see in bot lane some picks, because he's already good with the plates, because of the way his W interacts with turret platings. Let's look at the runes before we round this up. Instead of having 4 biscuits, you now get 3. They spawn faster. Okay. Don't feel like that was necessary. So, like, sure, that's a buff, but you get less health. A lot less sustain, less mana too, healing duration, because you get it faster. Less mana total as well. I don't think I will go biscuits on Veigar at least. After this. Because the thing is, like, just having less mana, less health, everything. Like, because this is like the buff, right? Like, this does not matter. You might look at this and then think, yeah, this matters. No, it really doesn't. Right? Like, a good laner should not need to use his fucking biscuit at 2 minutes. Right? You should not have to use all your biscuits here. Only thing this does is you get the gold faster. Like, if you want to sell them. That's the only thing. But now that is less viable, because now, instead of getting 30 gold times 4, you now get 30 gold times 3. So you get 90 gold instead of 120. And also less mana. So gonna have to see, gonna play some games and then see what I feel like. But this is pretty big. So Aram don't care. Ranked, don't care. Bug fixes. Oh, Katarina bug fix. Did they maybe fix the bug where Katarina one-tricks are 1000 LP higher than what they should be? No, they didn't. Okay. Oh, this is good. Selling any stacking consumable items will no longer sell 2 of them at a time if there are more than 1. Yeah, that was a bug. So good that they fixed that. Everything else don't really care. Udyr gets a new skin. Okay. Nobody cares because nobody plays that champion. Hextech Rambus, that's a badass skin. That's cool. Overall, the patch is pretty good in my opinion. It shakes up the mid lane meta by a lot and allows more counter picks. So, yeah. Corki Azir will still be okay, but they will really struggle versus Ekko now, I feel like, at least the Corki. Jack's Fiora will be even better versus things like Kled. Kassadin as a counter to Ekko, which got buffed. LeBlanc Syndra will come back. Lux support, still bad, I think. But of course, it's more playable this patch than the last patch. Riven one-tricks will still play Riven. Nobody will play Shen. Nobody will play Singed. The boss will be the only Sion player. Syndra, yeah, already explained her. Sylas jungle won't work. So that's my rundown about the patch. Let me know in the comments if you agree, if there's something you disagree with, if you have any questions. But yeah, I think this patch is pretty good, guys. Bye bye.